that was beautiful. Thank you so much, William, for sharing some of your music with us today. Um, Hello, I'm Jeff Arnell, the Executive Director of Black Mountain College Museum and Art Center here in Asheville, North Carolina. And I am so happy to be joined by bassist, composer, band leader, activist, community organizer, William Parker, and author Cisco Bradley, who is a professor of history at the Pratt Institute. We're together to discuss Cisco's new book on William Parker's life and music called Universal Tonality, now available on Duke University Press. Hi, William. Hi, Cisco.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. It's so great. First off the top, the book is extraordinary, and I devoured it, and I'm a fan of many years, and so I'm so happy that it's out and it exists in the world.
Yeah, thank you. It was a real labor of love, and I'm really glad to have the book out as well. It was a really incredible honor and pleasure to work with William Parker on this.
It seems like a short period of time, but I guess it was like, you said 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, we sat down
Really?
in January of 2016 for the first time.
Okay.
That's when we started really doing the interviews for the book. So yeah, it seemed like a short time, but also, like, wow, we really did do a lot during those years.
It's amazing. Cisco, we were briefly discussing before this conversation about your decision to include an artist statement by William in the introduction of the book, and how that set the tone for the book, and also kind of set a bar of sorts for the book. And I thought it would be really great if we could, if you were up for sharing that statement now for this conversation as a kind of a grounding for this conversation.
Yeah, in articulating his own artistic vision, William Parker wrote the following. It is the role of the artist to dance, sing, shout, and whisper about all that is beautiful, wonderful, and majestic, to mirror and project the present and future, to tell us the stories inside little children's hearts, giving us a view beyond the horizon. Communicating by the language of stone, wood, soil, the language of happiness, sadness, and joy. It is the role of the artist to incite political, social, and spiritual revolution, to awaken us from our sleep and never let us forget our obligations as human beings, to light the fire of human compassion. When this inner flame is burning, people are uplifted to another state. Their vision and senses are doubled. They see, hear, and feel things they never did before. The heat of the earth, the cry of living beings. This fire is stoked by conviction, caring, communication with others. The idea is to live strongly within this vision without compromises, even after being met by a cold gray world that could care less about vision. A world that makes insensitivity and murder of idealism and individualism a standard. It is the role of the artist to become a human being, to see that the only art is the art of living. The artist must quickly make the transformation to human being, and in the same breath come to realize he or she is a vehicle through which light passes. We can flow and sing with this reality.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. William, what do you think about that today?
Well, I feel that that statement is one that's been repeated. I've repeated over the years. It's the same mantra from the beginning, is that basically we experience music, and I must include dance and poetry, all arts, and then as a result of that, we begin to feel better. There's a certain amount of healing that takes place if the art is vibrating right, that lifts us up a little bit and takes us from our conscious state to another state where we're receptive to a different flow of energy. And that flow of energy you could call inspiration, or intuitive world that allows us to see. Our senses are dilated, and we're able to see more and feel more, and have a little look over the horizon to another world, which is just vibrating a little higher than the world we're in. And so we can see the true nature of living. You know, there's a greater connection to nature itself, to the idea of, okay, well, you know, stepping on flowers and never knowing that you're stepping on flowers. But when you're in a higher state, you're not only aware of flowers, you don't step on them, but you begin to see, wow, that's beautiful. Or that person is beautiful. Or the sky is beautiful. Or the potential in things are heightened because you begin to see another world. And that's basically what art's about. And it uplifts us and takes us into another place so we can heal. I mean, when you're injured, you need to go to a place where you can lie down and heal. You need to go to a place that's restful, and that you can sort of enact your own inner healing, because everything is inside, and you just have to activate it so one can be healed. And that's kind of what it's about on all levels. And the more you play music, the more you engage in the creative arts, if you're on the right track, you begin to see this. And so the message is always the same. It's always about healing, enlightenment, and fueled by love of human beings and love of this world. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, to continue on that, the book, Universal Tonality, I mean, really lays that out, that journey, your journey out to this point today, right? And it was so inspiring and also emotional to read in so many ways for me. And I wonder if you could, I know it's in the book, but for our audience, if you could, William, talk a little bit more about this, the idea of spiritual practice and art practice and how they're intertwined, and everything that you said in the statement and what you just also said. And but going back to your spiritual beginnings, you know, it is in the book, so I would definitely recommend that. But I think that this is maybe a moment that you could share with us of.
Yep. Well, it's now 2021. Let's see my perspective on it now, today. I think that I was very, very lucky, first of all, to be in the right, what I consider the right place, the right spot at the right time. Because, and also to recognize that everybody has a destiny or a calling, and to really figure out what that calling is without being without it being covered by the ideas of how we're supposed to live. So there was a point where it was like, okay, you have to go to college, the school, to be a doctor or a lawyer. This is not necessarily me, but say a person says, okay, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, and the other part of them is saying, I want to be a musician. And they say, okay, well, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and they forget about music. And then, so they're stuck being a doctor or a lawyer. So you can say, okay, now how can I do the same thing being a doctor or a lawyer that I could do in music? Okay, which is, and it comes down to, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Okay, now if you say, well, I'm a cook, I'm a gardener, I work with little kids in the daycare center, or I work with elderly people in the nursing home. So how can I make that nursing home a bandstand? How can I get the same reaction I would get with music? And the thing you do is you just get it by, again, uplifting people through by how you interact with them. Thinking that every person you meet, when they see you and talk to you, afterwards they're going to be saying, wow, I want to see that guy again. Because when I met that guy, man, or that woman, I was feeling like blah, blah, blah. And now every time he comes around, I'm in a different state. So I got a lawyer that doesn't charge me, and my doctor makes house calls. So you're not limited by what you do, it's how you do it. Now, if you do, and I think if you do have a calling for music and you get off the track, somehow you'll get back on the track. And somehow if you're open, and I think it's about being open to the flow of things, to be able to feel the wind and the what we call the sweet breeze on the corner, hitting your cheek and closing your eyes and just feel it and going with it and turning towards that breeze. You can do it. And sometimes we run into mentors, we run into someone that guides us. That someone could be, oh wow, I heard the music of Ornette Coleman. Man, this guy is something else, man. I'm gonna do what he's not afraid to be himself. So I'm gonna quit my job and be myself. So everyone, and there's so many people who can inspire each other. But again, it's like finding the light and say, well, okay, I'm stuck in prison. Oh man, I'm doing like 10 to 20. Oh, this is going to be a mess. Okay, but then after a while, you're sitting there, and you say, "Oh, wait a second. I shall not be subjected to a mess. I'm going to find a way and say that, okay, William Parker says the sky is always beautiful. It's always there, and it must be here in some manifestation. So you have to look for it. You have to figure it out, whether it's books, whether it's another person you meet, whether it's a letter you read. But you have to say that there is an equality in the experiencing of enlightenment. It's like you don't have, so I have no money, so I can't be enlightened. I have too much money, so I can't be enlightened. Is that everybody, whatever you have, you can be enlightened and you can move up in the world. And the simplest thing is just be kind to people and be nice to people. You see somebody, whatever you can do to make somebody's life better, that's what you do. And it could be the simplest thing, and do it. If you got more money, then you give more money. If you're a billionaire, a millionaire, then you say, I'm going to build a housing complex for the homeless. If you have no money, then you say, okay, I'm going to get this guy a cup of coffee. If you have less money than that, you say, okay, I'm going to share my cup of coffee with him. And whatever you can do. If you're a musician, you play. If you're a dancer, you dance. And also the idea of projecting the idea, which is what we used to do in the 70s, which is every time one played music, I was projecting that the kids in India or in Mexico or in Africa would hear this music. Even though they weren't in the concert hall, but it was like every time I played a note, it had to count, it had to go to uplifting those kids. And somehow, when they were standing on their corner and they felt that breeze hitting them, the sound would be in that breeze. Now you say, well, that's crazy. There's no scientific evidence. So you don't need any scientific evidence. Well, I need scientific evidence to say, well, something you believe in, and it works. And so again, these are things that you say spiritual practices. They're part of spiritual practices. Is really in believing in something, And once you believe in something, you do it. But then you say, well, these guys believe that that people should be enslaved. Is that no? Come on now. Now, when you believe in something, it can't be. You say, well, those people don't look too happy. How can you believe in that? How can you believe in taking someone's physical freedom away and locking them up? So, I mean, all of these things, you can distinguish between something that is uplifting people and something that's bringing people down. It's very easy to do. And so all of these things are free to us, and all students and all people, you have a museum, you have a library. There's lots of things you can do to define mentors and people who will help you. But it's in the music. It's in the silence. It's in the sound. It's in the silence. It's in the the vibration. It's in the aftermath of the earthquake. We talk about the earthquake drummers and the thunder drummers. Like when you're a kid and you listen to that thunder crackling, man, those are the thunder drummers. Those are the thunder drummers, and then you say the lightning, man, that's those string players doing those glisses and popping those basses. That's lightning, and it's like, don't put a chain or hold on your imagination. Whatever you can imagine, you can do it, and that's the wonderful thing about being a teacher, is you can convey this to kids, and kids are open. I mean, if you tell them like whatever, and it's not like being something. The first rule is you already are something. It's perceiving something. It's seeing colors where they aren't, and that's normal. But dropping bombs is not normal. You see, so that's the that's the message, and it just keeps growing and it gets clearer, because the more you know, the more you. It's not about knowing. It's about feeling. And because I said to myself yesterday, I was walking down the street, and I said, "Yeah, I don't know very much from the, and I said, I don't care. I just, it's moment to moment, and it's like improvisation. It's moment to moment, knowing what, feeling what to play, not knowing what to play, but feeling what to play." I had incredible discipline as a kid. Like when I was from when I started school, I would always sit at the desk with my hands folded like this, and all the other kids would be running around and throwing papers, especially even when a substitute teacher came. I just never did that, and I don't know why I had this, but I always had that, and I always felt that one had to do service to respect your elders and respect your mother, your dad, your uncles, your aunties. And every time my mom would send me to my Aunt Elvira's house, and I go to her house like every Friday or every Thursday, and I get there and she'd say, "Can you get this from the shelf?" I wasn't doing anything monumental. She probably could have figured out how to get it herself. Then she'd say, "Well, can you put this over here for me? Can you do this? Can you do that?" And then she'd make me some food, and and we'd just sit there. And so it was like doing service to people and understanding that they were here to teach you. You were there to learn from them. And the idea is that people move your life. If you hear one solo by a musician who you love, and you hear this like stuff with complete communion, Gato Barbieri, Henry Grimes, Ed Blackwell, and they're playing, and you play that every day, man. That's like part of your family and moving, so that you don't care what they ever do, if they did any music ever again, is that's changed your life. So you always remember that. You always remember people who take you on a journey. If you pick up a book and you read, I said, Kenneth Patchen, Sleepers Awake. I said, this book is called Sleepers Awake. I said, wow, in Quest of Candlelighters, the Journal of Albion Moonlight. And he's talking about in there, which I got the title for my first album, through acceptance of the mystery, peace. Only through peace can come acceptance of the mystery. And that's like, you're growing up, that's like very impressionable on you, rather than say, okay, now I was into baseball and I dug Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and all that, but they weren't telling me that. So again, you make a separation from the entertainment to, sort of enlightenment. And the enlightenment has a same pull on you as entertainment, except it's like you're feeling something deep inside. And so you say like, Saturday morning we watching Soul Train. But, but then after that, you're listening to Albert Ayler and Duke Ellington and the MJQ, and that's pulling me another way. So I think if it pulled me another way, why can't it pull other people another way? So I think all of these things are important in finding what your journey is. But I think everybody can find there with the right teachers and just like flowing. I keep using the word flow, but it has to be because some people, it's like it was always the idea of compassion. Like I use this metaphor, like the mother who's got 3 kids, and all 3 of them are in different prisons. And every weekend when it comes to visiting them, she can't go. She got to go to one son because that's way upstate, and this one's way over here, and this one's. So in a month, she only can visit maybe 1 or 2 of her sons. And then she's got one more son who's at home she's supposed to be watching. So he doesn't end up the same place. And so it's like, wow, that's like a heavy thing for this person. And how does she deal with it? But to me, those are the heroes. Those are the people who despite of everything, she's not bitter. She doesn't lose faith. She doesn't, she's not like, she's just constantly hopeful that things will get better. And this is a feeding for me. I wrote a tune called For June Jordan, and a poem for June Jordan. And it was, well, why was that tune written? Because, June Jordan, let's just say she was raped 2 times. Okay, and it's in the book. It's not making, and yet she had no bitterness. She had still her level of compassion towards people didn't diminish, because when she was writing about Mike Tyson, she understood why Mike Tyson did what he did and way he acted. Which is me, and then I followed her speaking, and she was just like a reservoir of compassion and love for humanity. And so if she has that, everybody can tap in deeper and deeper and deeper into their understanding of what you call compassion and love for humanity, which is just as important as playing chord changes, if not more important than resolving a musical phrase. So, but it's all music, because then you're saying music, from the Sufi Hazrat Inayat Khan, the mysticism of sound, that music is anything that's beautiful. So that's where that's where it all comes from. And so now in the pandemic, we haven't been able to actually play live, but so you shift your gear to other areas, and then when you play live, hopefully we'll be able to do it. I did it like this week. I played at Smalls,
Wow.
And I had a great time. I didn't know whether I could play anymore. Really, I was saying, wow, I don't know if I got it anymore. But then I said, wow, I got it. It didn't go away. Thank God.
Good.
So it's like, yeah, it's wonderful. So um, yeah, I mean, so that's basically the idea. And these ideas overlap and overlap and overlap and cross all the way down. But it's hope. It's like, in order to survive, we must keep hope alive. And hope is really important, because you have kids who are 11 years old and don't have any hope. They don't care whether they live or die. They don't care. They join gangs because they say this is my family, and that is terrible. That you don't have any hope. That you have to realize that the world is not what you see. There's a whole other world that's not about IBM or Wall Street or joining the army. There's a world out there that's in here, inside of you. Which is kind of maybe a concept, but it's out there, but no, it's in here, and you just got to bring it out.
Thank you, William. To Cisco, in your work on this book and this journey that you're taking, and it's in a lot of ways, it is you're dedicating yourself. You were dedicating yourself to this project for so many years.
Yeah, I mean, I could answer that in a lot of different ways. I think it was an incredible honor to work with William on this book. I never had any other experience like it in terms of my, writing and really engaging with, one human being and their artistic vision and their, everything that they've done. And to me, the book was really about trying to investigate and explore and present William Parker's unique artistic vision. So, that to me was the goal at the outset, and I think I'm really pleased with how it came out. I think to me it was like, one of the things I've liked about that I've heard from some of the reviews is people refer to this as the first book about William Parker, and I think we covered a lot of ground with this book, but there's a lot more. Other writers can step up, and I think there's quite a lot more to do. In terms of other aspects of his work that we didn't cover, and we covered a lot, but I covered in this book, we really talk about the bands that he led, and then of course, earlier things he was involved in kind of before the 90s, when he began to really record a lot as a band leader. But I think there's lots of other aspects of what he's contributed that should be written about as well. And I hope there'll be more books to follow. When I say, if we have, I don't know, 30 books written about John Coltrane, there's no reason why we couldn't have 30 books written about William Parker, or, and as well as other people on the scene. I think we need to value the culture that we have right in front of us. Been saying this a bit. I mean, I think it's funny how I think we're still obsessed in a way with the 60s, and it was an amazing time culturally. But we still, you still hear people say, that Jimi Hendrix was the greatest guitar player ever, or John Coltrane was the greatest saxophone player ever. And they're amazing people. But I think there's so much cultural potential right now in this country that we often overlook. And I think, it's, to me, it's really exciting to be writing a book about, a certain aspect, I guess, of, you could say, of the sort of the music of jazz, and talk about it as a living music, not as a music that's, we're not talking about the 1950s, or we're talking about stuff that happened, in this decade. So, kind of bringing that, I think, to light. I think, to answer your question in another way, I think, when I think you asked about, sort of tributes in Williams' performance. I think until I sat down and worked on this book, I didn't realize how many tributes he had, that William Parker had done for other people, and they range from family members to political, sort of, social or political figures, to artists of various, various genres and disciplines and stuff. So, I think, I think more, a number of tributes to Don Cherry, for example, a well-known figure, but I was also amazed that, William has done tributes to people who are almost unknown in terms of their music. So I think picking out people that he really valued and wanted to make a statement about, and to perhaps, highlight a bit. That I think is and a really interesting aspect of his work. And I think, I think I've always been impressed with William Parker's sort of proactive role in the community. So this is also about kind of shaping our memory of the music, or shaping how we perceive the music, I think, through some of these tributes. So I think that's something. And then just to say, I think, how did I get involved in this in the first place? I heard William Parker's music for the first time around 2005 when I was a graduate student, and I was when I first started listening to this kind of music in general. And it just absolutely spoke to me. This is transformative music. It's not music that you have on in the car and you hear it, you turn it off, and you go about your day. It's music that I think really transforms people when they hear it. So to kind of bring that into one's life and actually feel the transformation. So to me, that was amazing. And the first record I heard was Sound Unity with his quartet, and after that, it was sort of a lifetime of exploration. And there's still more exploration to do. So I'm excited to see what William Parker does next. I think I've said this before. An incredible amount of work has been done, but I think there's all sorts of indications that his best work is still to come.
Well, let's just say that Cisco has a vision, and usually when you set to do something, you get a vision, like, hey, I'm gonna build a machine that flies in the air. Now, and then you start to do it. You get an impulse, and usually when you get an impulse like that, you follow up on it. It's right. I never, I don't know where his impulses come, because Cisco is like a sleeper cell, in one sense that, he's very subtle. You don't, like, say, okay. But then when he gets to work, he really gets to work. And so he was getting, I have chapter 1 finished. I'm up to chapter 5 now. I said, how'd you do all of that? So he was cooking. He was cooking, and was working very hard on it, because he had a vision. And the infrastructure of the music is always, undermanned. It's the manpower in that is, writers, newspapers, television shows, the things that promote the music and explain the music to the audience, like a midwife. The writer is the midwife, which sort of delivers the music to the people, on a bridge of enthusiasm, because we need enthusiastic people, not critical people. I like the record, but the track 3 I didn't like so much. Who cares whether you like track 3 or not? The point is that these musicians have put out the record, and you need enthusiastic people to promote it, because when you show enthusiasm, the audience will show enthusiasm, and they'll buy the music and they'll support the music. And that's what we need, because there's something called the Jazz Reservation. I don't know if I talked about it in the book. But if you look at the jazz musician as kind of like the indigenous people, as they went, a lot of them died, and then a lot of them were put on reservations to not be talked about. How many people in America have actually been on a reservation or know what happens there? They're sort of forgotten people. You know, you go to a restaurant, do you see any indigenous people serving you, waiting on you, going to eat? No, because they are all subjected to a reservation, and sometimes you get the feeling in jazz like we're going to end up in the jazz reservation unless we keep. You can't. The music never dies. Okay, you know, Coleman Hawkins played in 1950s, 40s, and if you listen to Coleman Hawkins now, 2021, just like it's fresh. It never ages, it never dies. So the music itself doesn't age or die. It's just that in our society, we're only concerned with pop music, with music that makes money. And but this music is sort of sacred music. It's music that that you can't preserve it because, okay, Fred Anderson, a great tenor saxophone player from Chicago, like, I mean, when Fred played, it was like magic, you know, and then you add Kid Jordan to the mix and add Hamid Drake to the mix. Oh man, and it was like, whoa, it's like so it was great. But now Fred is gone, Kid's still here, but you can't, you know, it's there, but why should I tell the youth about Fred Anderson? Because it's a source of inspiration. Suppose someone wants to play low notes and not play off of chord changes. And I'm giving you a whole bunch of people that played off of their original sound. So now they say if they did it, then you can do it. It's okay to paint across the bars, to blur the lines. That's what nature does. You know, take a look at trees, and you know, so that's the teacher. Take a look at the bushes and plants. So it's okay to blur and cross lines, especially if it's a natural thing to you. So we want to teach about the music of all the musicians, and there's so many of them. We need lots of teachers. Now, and there's so many jazz schools that teach this music, but they don't mention Fred Anderson. They don't mention Joseph Jarman. They may mention the art ensemble for a little bit in a chapter of a book or Sun Ra, but they don't really know. Because I know I teach at the new school sometimes, and I ask the students, have you heard of Marshall Allen? Nah, they don't know. You don't know. You know who John Gilmore was? They don't know. You know who Sonny Murray was? They don't know. You know who Albert Aller was? They don't know. So I'm saying, like, what are they teaching you here? They don't teach the history. You know, so that has to be included in the curriculums. And you imagine if all the schools that teach jazz would include this in the curriculum. I mean, Wayne Shorter is cool, but Gratian Moncourt wrote a lot of tunes. How come his tunes are not included in the fake books? What happened to teaching about Alan Shorter, Wayne Shorter's brother? You know, he just disappears in history. You know, you have Bill Dixon, you have Clifford Thornton, you have so many great musicians whose stories are not told. And they're very interesting stories, and the music is interesting. So I think that we have to, you know, get that going. And perhaps this book is the beginning of a movement to speak about the unsung heroes that need to be talked about, spoken about. You know, who was Jimmy Garrison? What did he do? You know, why did Henry Grimes disappear for 35 years? You know, I remember they were speaking at WKCR radio station. They said Henry Grimes on bass. I mean, and this is Columbia. These are like graduate students. They can't do the pronunciation of Henry Grimes. I said, so you know, we got a lot of work on that, and so hopefully this book will be the beginning of many other books that could be in universities and libraries, and we can get a hip sort of administrator of arts in America that will begin to not just take what's popular, but take all art, where we have national radio stations. So like if you're Polish American, how come, where can you listen to Polish music? Which station? Okay, which station if you're Japanese, can you listen to, you know, Japanese music or Chinese music? So there should be a station that represents every American in America. You know, the same as a vaccine. And when everybody vaccinated, well, everybody should listen to the music of their culture as well as other people's cultures. Because if we're going to get along, then you have to hear my music, and I have to hear your music, and that's more what universal tonality is hearing about each other's music and seeing not how different we are, but how similar we are.
Yeah.
Can I add just a couple things? William, that's a beautiful, beautiful statement. I couldn't agree more. I think of when I proposed the book originally to Duke University Press, yeah, they send it out to peer reviewers to look at the proposal, and then they decide like, yes, this book is either worthy of being published or not. And I remember one of the comments really stuck with me, and that is one of the outside reviewers wrote and said, yes, this is a book that we need to have published. They said, it's amazing. There's so many other books that also need to be published. Where's the book on? I mean, where are the books on Cecil Taylor? I'm not talking about one book. I'm talking about like 30 books. Why you know his work is absolutely monumental. Why hasn't that been like, that should be a part of every music history course? I mean, he's a figure of immense importance. Where's the book on Albert Ayler? Where are the books on Muhald Richard Abrams? Where are the book? We can go down that list. And so I remember, that really stuck with me in the process, thinking about that. I mean, knowledge production, and how do we do that? And why has it been limited? But I think from the beginning of, I guess, what we call free jazz, almost from the beginning, I feel like we kind of got, I think as a culture, almost got stuck in this idea like, well, is this really jazz, or is it something else, or is it legitimate? Is it not legitimate? It's these sort of, like, to me, elementary kind of missteps in how we think about it, as opposed to all the other ways that we could think about it. I mean, we're talking about some of the most brilliant artists that this country has ever produced. So why do we keep knowledge of them at bay while we're trying to like get everybody to focus on artists that I think are, maybe not nearly as perceptive? So that to me that's the, I think, an issue with the culture in the United States, with the way that we value or don't value ourselves. I mean, I think we're talking about some incredible visionaries. I mean, the first time I heard Bill Dixon's music, it was so powerful that I felt like it knocked me over. I literally like laid down on the floor and listened to it. I was paralyzed. I couldn't act. I just had to sit there and listen to it. I mean, if it's that powerful for me, and I imagine it must be for other people, where are all the books on Bill Dixon? I mean, his stuff was brilliant. So, I love what William just said, and I've been saying this myself. Like, okay, this isn't about me as a writer. It should be about all the writers in this country. What are we going to do next? I mean, I think William's done an incredible service to the culture by his series of conversations books that are put out by Rogue Art. I think there are 3 volumes. I've heard that he's working on a 4th volume. These are interviews with musicians, some of whom are now passed away. But yeah, in-depth interviews, oral histories really of their relationship to the music and how they were involved. I think that those are immensely valuable. I've been working on something I'm calling the Free Jazz Oral History Project, that I've been doing in-depth interviews with a lot of musicians, just in the past year or so, especially trying to prioritize people who are now in their 70s and 80s. So yeah, I mean, to say, to me, there's so much to be done. It's just, 1 or 2 people can't do all the work that's needed. We need a lot of people. So I just wanted to say all that. I think, how we build an archive around this music, how we build more community around it, I think is immensely important. And to me, that's the work that I want to do in the next number of years, to try to continue, I guess, what we're starting here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I really got so much of that from this book. And, I remember in the book, things came up not that I forgot, but just I had put somewhere else in my memory, about key moments. And William, you have been part of this music for so long that I really wanted to take, I have a lot of questions we're not going to get to, but I did want to, because I think it's on track to this, what we're talking about, is some of these key moments that, not say recently and not say way back, but the Sound Unity Festival in '84. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and how pivotal that was in, the music and maybe in the trajectory of so many things.
Well, first, let me say that, most musicians in jazz, whether you're like very famous, like Miles Davis, or less famous, you work a lot in Europe. Europe has always been a salvational point where what was not appreciated here in America was appreciated in Europe, in Scandinavian countries, in Italy, France, Germany, England, Japan. And part of the movement over there was that I got involved in, which I was very lucky to play with Americans and also to begin to play with Europeans. And was the free music production called FMP, run by Joost Gabers in Germany. And they would have a festival, which they didn't have here, which was you'd get 15 musicians from Diamanda Gallis, Evan Parker, Peter Brutzman, Connie Bauer, Johannes Bauer, Peter Cobalt, Enrico Rava, Tomas Stanko, William Park, and we get together, and there's 4 or 5 days. We get to the concert hall, and everybody's name is up. And then they say, okay, well, I want to play a duo with Kondo. I want to play with this guy. I want to play with that guy. And then we play duos and trios. Now, no written music, we play. And it's like 4 sets a night. In between that, everyone's hanging out, talking. And that sort of was the model of what was going to be the Sound Unity Festival, which started in '84. I'd started going over to Europe playing an FMP in '81. It wasn't my idea. It was the idea of Peter Cobalt. Now, Peter Cobalt was a German bass player from Wuppertal who was a mover and shaker. And what I mean by that, he would go into a place and see an art gallery. And in 2 weeks, there's a music series there. I mean, he had a gift of seeing what people, the musicians in that town, maybe walk by that art gallery all day for years, and they don't do anything there. But Peter was able to go places and see things and have a vision about it. And he was one of the founders of FMP with Peter Brutzman. So his idea was to come to America. He got some money from an artist, an East German artist named A.R. Penck, who was very, very popular at the time. So he got some money from him, and then he, we had been communicating. He called me up, and I was the liaisons person because, people, the Lower East Side community did not trust guys from Europe with money. So I had to sort of be the bridge person, like Peter's cool, he's going to set this festival up. And the idea of the festival was to have 100 musicians play, and but this was unlike FMP. It wasn't random; it was groups, and everyone was going to get paid the same amount of money, $100, no leaders fee. And we're talking about, everybody from Jimmy Lyons, Peter Brutzman, Charles Gale, Marilyn Crispell. You can find the old flyers. So we did that, and it was very, very, very successful. During the organization of that, I called up Bill Dixon, and he came down to New York paid his own way and own hotel, and we had a meeting. I remember I have a tape of the meeting around here somewhere. Ahmed Abdullah, Bill Dixon, myself. I don't know if Patricia was at this meeting or not, but we had other meetings with Patricia and Marilyn Sontag, Daniel Carter's wife, who actually coined the name Sound Unity Festival. It came from Maryland. And so we as a group got together with the money from Pink and we organized this. Yost Gabers came from Europe. Toshinori Kondo came from Japan. All of these people were coming as this was an international festival. Now, I spoke to there's an actor called Louis Guzman, Puerto Rican actor, who was running this cultural center named Quando. And so I went over to him and we rented Quando for like $800 for the week. It's like $100 a night. And it was really set up like a European festival because we had the European sandwiches, we had the drinks, and we had these sets of music. And people were, so that was really, really, really one of the starting points. Now, we had been doing Lower East Side festivals way before this, since the 70s, but the Lower East Side festivals didn't have any money. We didn't have any advertising. I remember we had banners made. I remember we were going to Bleecker Street. We found this acrobat guy that climbed up the pole and put the banner across Bleecker Street. So we had, and so everything came together during that festival. And I still have the records for it, handwritten by Peter in his record books about people who came in, and so it was a great festival and a great idea. In 1988, we repeated that. I rented the Knitting Factory, and we did Sound Unity 2, which and at that time, Milford Graves, Sonny Chirac, other musicians played, and the thing. Again, it was the same principle, except it was more, we gave a leader a fee in that one. But it began to start the possibility that if we had funding, we could do a festival. Then after that, Patricia started the Improvisers Collective, which was just a collective, 50, 60 musicians, and we had Context Studio. We rented that with Ed Montgomery's place, and there was a big band, and there was improvised music every Wednesday night. We put out the flyers. But then what happened, it was supposed to be a collective, but then she ended up doing all the work. Because sometimes in a collective, you have, everyone is there in thought, but in actuality, it just doesn't work. So things were beginning to happen because the loft scene had died, so it was perfect to begin to put down some new seeds for the future. And we had all of these different communities. There was, all the Studio Studio Ruby, all that was closing. And so now, and by 88, Knitting Factory had opened up. And that was a whole nother phase of downtown music. But that took care of the white musicians. And the black musicians, they were like a little bit in limbo because now they had moved to the point where we want to make some money. So we're going to go to Europe and we're going to do that bit and figure out where to go from there. But that was the beginning point, and things just sort of, everybody went in their camp. So we didn't really get the sound unity in the end that we wanted, but it was the beginning of individual acts of movement, acts of moving and organizing by different groups. So it was great.
Thank you for that. I always wanted to ask you about that, and always actually was lucky enough to know Peter Cobalt a little bit, and really enjoyed those conversations I had with him. Just to bring it back, because I'm looking at the clock, and I know that we're going to keep this, or try to keep this around an hour, and I want to just touch and maybe bring it back to the beginning and some of those ideas and spirit about aesthetics. And I found this quote, and I want to say it's in an interview that you did, maybe with Cisco, from Derek Bailey, about being yourself, playing, the way that William Parker plays, rather than the way that somebody, do you remember that quote?
No, but
Yeah,
but
so
can
it's
tell you
I have it written down. It's
yeah.
so it's an 80. I think it's an 82. Oh, I love it because you're the only guy that I play with that's not afraid to be himself. Everyone else is trying to play like me, and I can't
Oh
remember
yeah,
the
yeah.
writing.
Derek
Yeah,
Bailey said that. Yeah, yeah. He said that I was the only person that really plays free jazz, because I keep the free, but I don't get rid of the jazz.
mm,
Mean that I say I'm a blues bass player, and I don't take the blues out. I mean, when I was playing in F&P, everybody was playing pointillistically, and I was playing the way I played, and it fit. And again, that was the idea of the makings of this thing about the universal sound, is that you don't have someone that plays Chinese music or Japanese music. They come in and they play. I'm playing what I play. They play what they play. And it's like a symphony of birds. Everyone is singing differently, but it's together because we all have the same intent in our heart, which is to make beautiful music. And there's nobody there directing or separating us and saying, like, well, you're important and I'm not. But we're all important. So, yeah, so Derek Bailey was cool, and what I learned in playing with him is basically you can choose to use some of his vocabulary if you want, but you also can use your own vocabulary, and he's perfectly cool with it. He was always perfectly cool with that.
yeah, I love that, and what I got from that, and what I got from the book, and what I always get from your music is that you I hear William Parker, and that moves me, and that's kind of what Cisco was saying too, and I think that we can only be ourselves, and I kind of get that, and it kind of goes back to your kind of artist statement, and why we're here and why
It's a
this
wonderful
exists, and
thing to be. It's a wonderful thing to be. And also know that the parameters of what that self is, if it's in tune to nature, if it's in tune to to the best things of life. And I don't mean the best caviar and champagne. Now, come on. But I'm talking about the best things that benefit all people. And that's how, and that's sort of the barometer. That's how you judge. It's like, when I drink this champagne, I'm making the world better. No, no, but that I'm in tune with things that will help free people, help free their minds and souls, and activate. Activism is activating their inner flow and glow. It's light that candle up inside. So I know today I sound more like a motivational speaker, but sometimes it comes out that way. But that's really what it's about. It's about really helping people, and yeah.
again, I think motivation or inspiration is what I need, and maybe we all need a little bit of that. So thank you. The book is extraordinary. Again, your music is extraordinary, and thank you, William and Cisco, for
Thank
making
you
time
so
and
much.
for
Thank you.
doing this today.
Thank you, Jeff, so much for having us.